Hey, we got a very interesting topic today. So let's get it started.
Wake up, everybody. I just wanna start a new day. Remember what I say.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Remember what I say.
It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock. It's July 26th up in here. It's Den City tonight. How y'all doing? How's everybody? Hope you had a great weekend. Like I always say, I hope you had a great weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I hope you had a great last week. Hope you're all healthy and feeling good and had some good things happen to you, things that you've been waiting for. Some blessings. Everybody needs some blessings. Everybody needs some blessings. How are y'all? That's my theme song. There's no title to it. It's just a Den City Tonight song, and it was produced by me. We're going to try a couple of things different here today. Well, not a lot of things, but I'm going to have some little background music. So if you hear some music in the background, it's just basically, different instrumentals that I've done over the years. Just a couple will probably be on a loop or something. But if you like anything that you hear, let me know. Shoot a text to a brother. Shoot an email at densitytonight@gmail.com. Also, go to the YouTube channel if you don't have, if you have Facebook but you don't really use it that much. Got YouTube, Den City Tonight. On my YouTube channel. Go there, like and subscribe. It's DEN City Tonight, and you'll get my show. You'll get me, and you like and subscribe, and we'll be good to go. So like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're on Facebook, you know what it is. Coming out here automatically every Monday, 8 o'clock. And I'm glad you're here with me. So today, what are we talking about? I did a promo a little while ago about this show, just talking about, is it crazy to start a new career late in your life after you've been doing something for a long time, and then you decide, that's it, I'm out. And is that something that's crazy? Is that something that is dangerous? What is the ramifications of that, or why do people do it? Today just so that right on, today is officially another paint day in my house. We're working on the different rooms right now. We're in my daughter's room. We just finished painting her room. We got a couple more things to paint, and then we'll move on to the other rooms, the dining room. But I had to have my daughter get her room first. And so yeah, we've been doing that. And if I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it now. That I have been home, so I've taken some time away from work over the last 3 months. Well, it's the last 2 months actually, like May, June. 3 months. At the beginning of August, it'll be going into the 4th month. And taking some time off to reset. Like many of us, like thousands of people have done since March 2020, when this pandemic hit and everything kind of went haywire. Taking some time to reset and kind of rethink what I want to do and what I want to spend my time on. And I think a lot of people have done that. They've decided that, well, damn, we all know that we're not promised tomorrow. We're all getting out here the same way. We're all getting out here either in the little urn or the big casket. And we all have our time. But, I think people have really, really said, yo, it could really happen at any time. And I have to decide whether or not, what I'm doing with my life is worth the time that I'm putting in. Is worth the time that I'm investing, the stress I may be dealing with, the aggravation I may be dealing with, the, run the gamut of all the things you could deal with at work. Is it worth going through that? Whether you're young or old, but especially after you've been doing something for a while, you kind of rethink where you're at. So, I wanted to take a little time for myself and just to tell a little bit, I know I talk about myself through different things, but specifically in regards to career, I just wanted to kind of reflect over, where I've been and the things that I've done, over the last certain amount of decades in regards to the career that I'm at and why I decided to take some time and kind of reflect on it, whether or not this is what I want to continue doing. And it's a little scary. It's scary, but I'm not scared. So if that makes sense, it's scary, but I'm not scared to have to get another position in the field that I've been in. You know, if I have to get that, I'm fine. What I'm really scared of is that I'll have to get that and then resign to the fact that that's what I'm going to do until I retire. That's more scary. That's scarier. That's most scary. That's scarier than having to worry about getting a position. I'm qualified for a lot of different positions, so I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is if the position that I'm going to get, I'm going to settle in, which is why I've been trying to do my own business, trying to set up my own, things over these last couple of 4 months so that I can kind of be more of in control of my own destiny. But looking back, I like, how do you get into the position? How do you get into that career? Unless you're unless you're going to school for a specific thing, like you're a doctor or a lawyer or Indian chief. Now, if you're a doctor or a lawyer and okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to school for this goal. I'm going to become this thing. And you set out a specific path to attain that. That is not what I'm kind of talking about here. I'm talking about how a lot of people get into a career or get into a line of work because kind of it was what was available at the time, what they can get easily. They were probably young, and because they continued to go along in that path, then it started up getting more money. They ended up getting more responsibility. Ended up becoming more of a figurehead in that particular industry. A lot of knowledge in that industry, a lot of time put in, and then before you know it, 20 years passes by, and you're in that industry, and you don't even really know if that's what you ever wanted to do. You're good at it. You have the knowledge of it. You're prepared. People recognize you for it. People understand your talent level in it. But you're like, this is what I even want to. This is what I wanted to do. Or is just, because of the things that I've attained in life, the money that I've been able to make in this particular industry, is that what I wanted to do? So you start to wonder, and you start to question certain things, and then you look back and you reflect. And for me, 30 years, I'm going back now to 1991, was the first security position that I got 30 years ago. I'm in a company called National Brand Outlets. Now, if you know this company, you're just as old as me, or you're a big proponent of old commercials and old memorabilia and nostalgia. National Brand Outlets was a store that sold men's clothing. They sold everything except shoes. And their commercial used to be these two little red socks inside. It was a box, and it was these two little feet with red socks on. They would go up and down like this, and it was like everything except shoes. And eventually they even got shoes, but that was their catchphrase prior to that. Great clothing, great experience. I was a regular security officer, blue jacket, striped tie, standing at the door, making sure that the beeps go off, that I would, address that. And that was the beginning of, it was just when I got engaged. It was, trying to move out and get your own apartment. So it was like, we're going to get whatever I'm going to get. I didn't have a lot of experience. Like I said, if some, know from before, I didn't go to college. I left high school early, went to a volunteer program, got a degree, got a certification in engineering and recording, and then got a job. So get that first job, and it's okay. Easy enough, pays the bills. And then from there, I moved on to a company called Burlington Coat Factory. Burlington Coat Factory it was my first experience in leadership of any kind. I mean, I did have, there's another company that I worked at Alexander's for a while, and I was a shoe manager, but that wasn't on the trajectory of the security path that I ended up going on and staying on. So I go to Burlington Coat Factory, and I'm a security manager after about a year, and I'm making $7.75 an hour. And it was $75.65 an hour. And then I remember I got a 10-cent raise. And I remember my manager being embarrassed to explain to me that I got a 10-cent raise. And that was a funny story in itself. But Burlington Coat Factory. Now, I met people there that, man, 30 years ago that are still friends of mine to this day. I've met so many people there. We gained so many close relationships. And like I said, that was my first real taste of leadership and understanding where, you know, that could possibly go. But still, I'm making $77 an hour. This is like 1992. Yeah, something like that, like 1992. $7.75. I was a manager. That's crazy. And what's really crazy is that I think that's still pretty much the minimum wage rate pretty much right now. Let's see, I got. Hey, Will. What's up, sir? I was wondering, I missed you last week. I didn't see you last week. Career choices are difficult to decide. It depends on circumstances, marriage, children, etc. Single, unattached folks can gamble, take risks, since the cause and effect impacts the one individual. That's true. That's true. But I have a caveat for that. And I'll get to it. So I get to go to, Burlington Coat Factory, deal with what I deal with, become more familiar with leadership, and end up in a company called Absolute Security. We had in 1994, all the security in all of New York suddenly had to become registered. I don't know exactly. I think it was because of the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. They had to register all the security guards with the state. Now you had to get a unique number, make sure that you've never been arrested before. And so we did that with a company called Absolute Security. And then all of us from Burlington decided we want to move to Absolute Security because they pay better. And we did. We all moved as a unit to Absolute Security. I brought most of my team with me, and we ended up working at Burlington Coat Factory. I'm sorry, at Absolute Security. And that was the beginning of like a little bit more of a sexy kind of security. It was a little more fun. It was a little more involved. It was a little more, like, oh, I can do this. This isn't just me standing at a door somewhere. That was my introduction to a lot of celebrity security. We used to do a lot of book signings in Absolute. And if anybody wrote a book between like 1993 and like the year 2000, I pretty much was at that book signing. So we're talking politicians, sports figures. That's how I got to meet Derek Jeter in the early 90s. Jimmy Carter, Mario Cuomo. I did security with Hillary Clinton. I mean, that was probably some of the most fun I had, in that line of work. And again, you're starting, you start to forget about the bad aspects of it, the hours, the days that you get, you get stuck on shift, or the days that you don't really want to be there, or the days that something's really bad is happening and you have to deal with it because you're security. Those things kind of fade away when you're having fun on the other aspects, when you're meeting celebrities and you're doing book signings and all that stuff. So it again, now the years are starting to go by now. It's 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, and I'm meeting Yankees and I'm meeting Joe Torre, and I go from Absolute Security to a store called the Athlete's Foot. The Athlete's Foot is a sports store, and it's a new sports store that is, very specific to the runner and to the sports figures. So we have all different kinds of events, and I'm at Andy Pettit, like I said, Derek Jeter, Joe Torre, Angie Martinez from the radio came down, and so we're having all these great times. Hold on. All right, bro, take it easy. Thanks, man. Thanks, Will. As always. Long time listener, but just returned by Justin. But I heard this show last week, a rerun. Okay. That's my man, Will. So we get to the athlete's foot and we're doing all this different stuff. And I spent several years in the athlete's foot, and that's when I really, really got into a serious leadership role. I was a director of security pretty much for the 17 stores that were in New York. So there were different, it was a franchise. So I would go to different stores and I would, audit different stores and I would make sure that the inventory was correct and I would do investigations. And that was the real step into, being a full-fledged, security professional. That's when I had the more dealings with the police department. That's when I had more dealings with different detectives. That is when an Officer Howard, I will never forget Officer Howard's name. I think I told the story before. Him and I tumbled down an escalator trying to restrain someone who was flipping out and bleeding. And it was crazy. But that was like the biggest experience when it came to, leadership and having to do district meetings and having to do things of that nature and really guiding a company in some sort of scenario or some sort of way of trying to combat loss. We ended up being one of the best companies on the East Coast. I think we had like an under 1% shrink, and shrink is like a loss for the year. It was second only to one other place. And it was a great experience. And then the very next year, they cut my budget completely in half, and every program that I had created to help us attain that low loss was basically, was done for because they couldn't pay for it anymore. So that was also my first experience of corporate America, where even things that are good can be removed if they just don't feel that they want to pay for it. So it doesn't matter how much it happened to save the company at that point. They just were like, oh, that's what it was, and then move on. So that was very hard for me to take. I ended up going back to Absolute Security. And I was an office manager. And the office manager, I got to find out even more into dealing with the client. We were a third-party contracting company, so we worked with Barnes and Nobles. And people, you would not believe how much thievery goes on in Barnes and Nobles. I mean, it's incredible. I was like, it's a bookstore. How crazy can it be? It was bananas. It was theft and police investigations and having to go see lineups and pick people out of lineups because they assaulted someone in the store. We had a couple of deaths in the store. We had a robbery by gunpoint where people came in and shot up the Barnes and Nobles. It used to be on 66th Street and Broadway. And I felt so horrible because I had made someone work that night who wasn't supposed to work the 4 to 12 shift. He did me a favor and went in on the 4 to 12 shift and then got robbed at gunpoint. So it was a lot of stuff going on there. And it also, like I said, it gave me the dealings of understanding how to deal with, clients and with contacts for other companies. And that is a whole nother aspect of things. And what was happening was that it was changing. It was becoming very political. And as you raise to the ranks of a certain position, you start to get more political. You start to get, more involved in the politics and the he said, she said of companies and the ins and outs of people, backstabbing each other. You hear all the crazy stuff. And my last position in Absolute was opening a store in Staten Island. I'm having to travel at 5 a.m. in the Staten Island ferry in the winter. It just became such a crazy time. So I got an opportunity to open up a new company that was coming into the United States. And that was called H&M. Now, if H&M, everybody knows it. Everybody was, all over the place. But I think back then in, I think it was maybe 1999 or 2000, I think the company had just come to the United States. If not, it was very few stores. But I opened up the flagship store first I opened up the store on Spring Street. And, the company's from Sweden, and it was a totally different experience than what I ever thought of. I mean, the grand opening of this store, now stores do that. Back then, stores didn't do this. They had DJs. They had the store opening, and they had the DJ and the back of the store, and they had waiters and waitresses, bringing wine and hors d'oeuvres. And outside the door to the store was a line. So it was like you were going into a club. Now, again, now that's not a big deal. You have all these other stores to do that. That wasn't happening back then, the beginning of 2000. That was like the beginning of that type of stuff. So now I'm seeing a whole different aspect. Now I'm like, everything that I learned about security has been kind of turned on its head, because now the interaction is different, and the expectations are different, and the persona has to be different. And I was always able to find a way to adjust and to relate to the demographic that I was dealing with, which was always appreciated initially by management. And it was another learning process of how things were changing, and how the industry was changing, and how the perception of everyone was changing. I opened up that Spring Street store, and then I opened up the flagship stores on 34th Street. And during that time on 34th Street, when we opened up that H&M, 9/11 happened. And I remember that morning being outside, looking at a shipment coming in. And I was talking to one of the other delivery guys from a different store. He was standing outside on the street, 35th Street. And the report comes over, 10-10 wins, plane hits the World Trade Center. And we're like, damn, it's so clear out here today. How could a plane hit, how could they not see it? It's a beautiful, clear day. And obviously we all know what happens after that. And that was my first experience, my real first experience in panic, like mass panic. I've had incidents before. I've been in fights before. I've been confronted and threatened, but I never had an incident where I wasn't in control of the situation as far as the surrounding areas, the mass panic that happened, the people running around, the people, kind of losing it, the bomb threats that kept happening from people that were stupid enough to think this was a funny time to call in fake bomb threats. But that happened. Cars would backfire and people would start freaking out. So that was my first experience with that in 2001. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget being asked to stay in the store overnight. It was myself and one other person. And we were told, we need you guys to stay in the store to protect the store. And, initially we're like, all right, yeah, we'll stay here. We'll make sure everything is all right. And then we started thinking like, well, wait, hold up. What are we supposed to do? The Empire State Building was right down the block from us. So I'm in my head, I'm like, yo, that's probably the next target. What are we supposed to do if things start getting haywire here? I'm not saving H&M, So that was also my first experience of the expectations of corporate and the home offices to say, you guys are, expendable. You stay there. Not everybody shut down the store, and who gives a damn about the merchandise and thing. You make sure you guys are safe. Try to get out there and get home, or get to a hotel, or get somewhere. No, stay there and protect our stuff. So as you go along and you start to say, man, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this where I'm at? Why did I come be a security officer? I mean, is this just a natural progression of things, or this is just how things happen? And, you go, all right. And, I was actually, I didn't work actually for H&M. I worked for a company called Elite. That was a third party for H&M. But they considered us like, their own employees, and I remember having a situation where we had items stolen and taken to the Banana Republic that was down the block from us. And the Banana Republic was down the block from us. And I went over there to talk with one of the loss prevention agents. His name is Danny, and his manager, whose name was Amelin. And I remember sitting there and talking with them and going, this is a nice place. And having them tell me, hey, we're looking for someone. We're looking for, another agent. And because it was a high-end store, even though it was a lower position, it was a higher paying position. Now I'm into my, it's after 2001, we don't know what's happening around us. I decided I'm going to make a move, and I ended up going to Banana Republic, I think in 2002, maybe 2003. Go to Banana Republic, and it's a great experience. Another team that, even though I wasn't the supervisor at the time, a lot of the times I took the lead role of what was going on. and eventually became, the supervisor and became the acting manager. Now, interestingly enough, it was another experience there that I understood where I became, whereas I was doing the job of the manager, but not getting the credit for being the manager. I was doing the payroll and I was doing the schedules and I was making the meetings and I was doing all that, but yet and all, they would never give me the title of manager. So every time I went to a different place, it was a new experience. But what was starting to happen was the experience was starting to become more negative than positive. And where in the beginning, it was new things that I was experiencing that were positive and they were different and they were kind of fun. Now it was becoming more negative, and I was realizing that, this industry is kind of messed up. I'm the one doing the work, but yet and all, I'm not getting the recognition. And I also started to realize that my relationships with my staff, which at one time were favorable, people looked on that favorably, were starting to be looked at differently. And it was starting to be looked at as though, I was too close to the staff. Now, I do understand there is such a thing. There is such a thing as being too close to your staff and not having that line where you separate yourself as a leader and them as, your staff. However, I never crossed that line because there was never any question from any of the staffs that I had that the leadership roles were not defined properly, and they were always accountable and they always knew what their job was, but we just happened to have a good relationship because I respected them and I treated them like my equal, even though they weren't my equal in job title. We were men, and women. So there wasn't supposed to be, I'm the boss and you can't talk to me. And we had great relationships. And sometimes those relationships, I don't know if it was jealousy or if I don't know what it was, but I remember an HR person telling me one day from Banana Republic, man, your staff is so loyal to you. I had guys in here talking about an investigation and they wouldn't say anything about you. They wouldn't say anything negative. And I was like, well, maybe because there wasn't anything negative to say. Like, what do you mean? But I don't understand that. They wouldn't say anything negative. What were you looking for exactly? And that became that type of thing. And, I never I cringe when I start to go toward the race thing. But what I did start to notice was that each of the places that I went to where the upper management above me was, of a certain ethnicity, I was always questioned about my relationships. I was always questions about my tactics, and that never happened before. I was always lauded and pushed and appreciated for my personality and for the way I handled people and for the way I thought out of the box. But the further I got along into management, those same things were looked upon differently. So when these things start happening, and that's when you start to question, what your moves are. But now, now at the time of the 90s, I'm making $50,000, I'm making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. I'm married, and you just can't pick up and just go. I mean, you could, but you don't think like that. You think like, okay, I'm gonna stick this out. I'm gonna go through to the next level, and it'll be better. It'll be different from there. So I stay at Banana Republic for about 5 years, and it just doesn't get to where I thought it would be. I go one more retail place. I go to a company called Jill Sander. Jill Sanders is a subsidiary of Prada. Oh my God, that was probably the worst experience I had because it was a high-end store. Jeans were like $3,000. There were t-shirts for like $500. There was like 2 shoppers a day. And you would think that would be a perfect thing, but just because there's nothing happening doesn't mean that is, I was used to a certain level of activity. So I was like, does anybody shop here? Does anybody? And then there were questions that were happening with the manager there. It became my final resolution where I was like, me and retail, it's time to make that change. And I ended up going to my first hotel, which is Hotel Trump International Hotel and Tower. And, again, because I changed career at that point, at least, not not career wise, but it was a different industry with the same type of security, but in a different industry. I had to start kind of step back a little bit, and I became one of the security officers for Trump International. But that was my first experience with having to get my fire safety director's license certificate. So I started to learn about fire safety, and I started to understand that concept. So that was just another skill set that was brought on to my skill set that I already had from dealing with retail. So Trump International was like my next level of, sexy security where, forget it. We dealt with every celebrity, the ones that were hot at the time, the ones that weren't. From Miley Cyrus and the Jonas Brothers and I forgot that other chick's name, but just all the celebrities that were around during that time, during the 2000s, and older celebrities, Aretha Franklin, Robin Williams. I can't even sit here and make a list. It would be ridiculous. We would just go on and on for days and days and days of all the people that we dealt with in there, and that was a great experience as well. But again, when you're a person that's kind of used to not being in charge, but at least having a say in what's going on, after a while, it becomes, it's not satisfying. You kind of want to move on from there. And I remember, as a fire safety director, actually going and interviewing for the director of security position. What up, my brother? What's going on, John? How's it going? Knowing full well I wasn't going to get the position, because even though I had a lot of managerial experience, I didn't have it in the hotel industry. And that's a whole nother thing, because the skill set is kind of the same, you would think, but people don't work that way. So I interview with the GM, and she looks and she goes, "Hey man, I know you could probably do the job, but there's no way that I can get over." My boss is telling them, "I'm going to hire one of the guards. He's going to be the director now." Just straight jump from guard to director. And she said, "Well, what I can do for you is we're opening up another Trump in Soho, and I can put you down there for one of these supervisor positions, and that'll give you the experience to become a director." And I was like, fantastic. So that's what we did. I got hired over at Trump Soho. This is like 2006? No, 2010. No, wait, 2006. I got there. 2010. I go to Trump Soho, and it's a great experience. Again, more of the high end, more of the celebrities, and it's there that I met probably one of the strangest relationships that I have with a director that I will probably ever have is with, a gentleman named Danny Robertson. And I mean strange in the sense that he is a very conservative, older white gentleman, very conservative, a little right wing, and him and I to this day are really good friends. And he's been one person that no matter what is going on in my life, if I needed something, if I needed a lead on a job, if I needed some information, if I needed some, materials, I could always count on Danny, always. And I appreciate that to this day. I doubt he's listening, but if he is, just know that, man. But again, Trump Soho, now we come through another situation where this is the first time that I've dealt with natural disasters. So we go through Hurricane Irene, we go through Hurricane Sandy, back to back, and we're dealing with that, and we're dealing with guests, and we're dealing with pieces of the structures flying off the building, and the GM jumping into the pool to save metal, and pots and stuff flying around, glass breaking. Again, a new experience. Now, not only have I dealt with terrorist activity, now I've dealt with natural disasters and been able to deal with that and been able to handle that. But again, Trump Soho, you get political, things start happening. My director ends up leaving, and the director that comes in, even though him and I had a good relationship, he had his own issues with management. A lot of people started leaving to a new establishment called the Viceroy, new hotel that's opening up in Central Park. So I ended up going there in 2013. This is my first, this is my baby. This is my hotel. I am the security manager, director. I'm hiring. I'm doing all the the programming of the doors. I'm creating all the policies and procedures, doing all that, and this is my baby, and it's going well. It's going great. However, what's not going great is the fact that on 57th Street there's like 5 hotels, and the ADR, which is the average daily rate that the hotels look for, what they think they're going to charge every day daily, was nowhere near what they thought it was going to be, because you had hotels that have been there longer that were better and bigger than ours, and we couldn't compete with them. So as the years went on, we never met our budget. So managers got fired, directors got fired, new GMs came in, and the last GM that came in, I don't know if this is true or not, but I had a very, very big footprint in that hotel, meaning a lot of people came to me for a lot of things. And I think when the new GM came in, they didn't like that, because I remember the first time there was ever a question that somebody had, and they said, well, I'm going to check with Frank. And they were like, why? Why are you checking with the security director? Who's he? And I think from that point, everything that I had attained in that store, little by little, started being pulled back. And then here goes another experience, how not being, somebody else's vision of what you should be doing is not what your vision is. So what do you do with that? Now here comes again, man. This is going to keep happening, so I don't leave. I stick it out. We're going through different situations where the engineering director leaves, and it leaves a lot of issues with the fire, with the mechanicals of the fire safety system. So we're working through that. I remember this day Prince died. Prince died. And the next day I came into work, and the front desk officer comes to me, the front desk manager, and he goes, Frank, Margaret, which is the HR manager, she wants to see you on the second floor. And I'm like, I'm looking at him, and I'm saying to myself, oh man, this is dead man walking. I know this. Margaret will call me her. If there was a situation where she needed to speak to me, she would call me herself. But this is the go get him for the execution kind of walk. And I'm like, all right, cool. We're walking. He doesn't want to look me in the face. And when somebody can't look you in the eye, that's a problem. We get to, the conference room, and she sits down and she tells me, Frank, this has nothing to do with your work. You have been one of the best workers here from the beginning. Everything that you've done, bullshit. But the company has decided that your position is going to be eliminated. So I just take my keys and I put it on the desk. And they say, Frank, but, don't you have anything to say? I said, well, is there anything that I can say that's going to change the outcome? And they were like, no, unfortunately, again, this is not reflective of you. And I'm like, that's fine. Here are my keys. I'll get my stuff. And, you think you could show, me and the engineering director had become very good friends. And he was pissed off because he didn't want to. He's taking over both jobs. He's like, I don't want to do this. I don't do security, But that was the way it was going. So okay, you think you can show him, certain things. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I go back into the office and I look at him and I go, I'm not going to show you anything, right? He goes, no, I don't want you to show me anything. Don't worry about it. I understand. I wouldn't show me anything either. He shakes my hand, and I get my stuff. And I take my files off the computer, and I go. And I remember going home and saying to myself, it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to walk in the door. My wife is going to be like, what's going on? And I walk in the door. She's like, what's going on? It's 12 o'clock. Why are you home? What happened? So she can see in my face what goes on. And, you start to think, okay, this is a, $75,000 job a year. And now I don't have it. And it's those little moments sometimes where you think about, okay, this is I'm going to change my career here. I'm going to change here. And it doesn't always happen, because what happened after that was I got a better job for $82,000 a year. And that job started well. But there were things that I was asked of, asked to be done that just weren't right. There were responsibilities that were trying to be put upon me that I didn't have certificates for. There were calls to 311 and to NYPD that were false, that were falsified, to the point that the first precinct came to the job and was like, why are you guys making these phone calls? They're not legitimate. And if you keep doing it, we're going to have to, do something about this because you're falsifying police records. And, things that happened that I wasn't, in line with. And I guess, it got to that point where they felt I wasn't the guy for them, and they weren't the company for me, for different reasons, of course. And we both agreed that we were going to go our separate ways. And I finally ended up at 70 Pine. I ended up at 70 Pine as a fire safety director for a residential building, and spent the last 4 years there. And it was during those 4 years that I said, this isn't it anymore. This isn't what I want to do, and the pandemic hit. And like everybody else, you had a long time to think about what you wanted to do. Although we worked through it, because I'm an essential worker, essential, there goes that word, which really means expendable. We need somebody to keep the city running, but we need to make sure that it's not anybody that if we lose, it's going to hurt too much. And so that's what we did. We worked. And even when we worked, we never really got a thank you from our employers. We never got are you guys okay? Does anybody need to talk to somebody? You guys have been dealing with residents that have been coming down with COVID, and you guys are in the front lines. Are you guys all right? Never. Not once. At least not to me. So it got to a point where I was just like, you know what? I have to do something different. I have to do something different. And I think so many people get to that point in their life where they just feel like whatever they've been doing, no matter the amount of time that they've been doing it, it could come a time where you just decide, I'm going to change, come hell or high water, whatever happens, I'm going to find a way to get through this. Unfortunately, I've never taken advantage of a government system per se, but this situation and what people were offering gave me and probably a lot of other people the chance to kind of say, you know what, I'm going to step aside, and I'm not happy where I'm at. And because I have an alternative that can hold me over right now, I'm going to do that. And whether that's right or wrong, or whether you think that's bull crap or not, or lazy or whatever the case is, hey, I paid into the system for 30 years. And now it's my time to sit back and decide what I want to do, while you kind of hold me over for all the crap that I had to deal with and the things that I've been working on. So that's what I did. And I think that it's scary, but there's skill sets that you develop. There's skill sets that you work with. I mean, I've always been in customer service. I've always helped people. That's why the job, the business that I'm trying to build is helping people, in my opinion. Yes, I have a potential to make a good amount of money, but it's helping people with their finances, helping people with, insurance, helping people with, saving for their kids, having a nest egg for their families in retirement. That's the business that I'm trying to build. And I know that at some point over the next month and a half or so, I'm going to have to go back to work, unless the business takes off. But that's like a 2 to 3 year game plan with that. But sometimes you guys got to make a decision, and you have to say, I'm going to use the skill set that I have. I'm going to use the things that I've learned about people. I'm going to use the things that I've acquired, my licenses, my certificates, my certifications, and I'm going to go do something different. I'm going to find something different, and I'm going to be happier. Hopefully you end up being happy, but at least I'm going to try to be happier than I am right now. Confucius says that every man, or let's say in this day and age, every person has 2 lives. And the second one begins when they realize they only really have one. And what that means is when you realize that what other people's expectations are and what other people's vision for your life is doesn't really matter, and how you see yourself is what matters, is when you truly live in your truth and you truly live freely. Now, I'm not saying you get to lay around like a bum and not do anything. What I'm saying is you put in the blood, the sweat, the tears, the frustrations, you put it in for something that you really want, for something that you really see yourself doing and flourishing and being that thing. You have 2 lives. The second one starts when we realize that we only have one. And that's the life that you want to live. That's the life that you deserve to live. And that's my story, as far as my career goes and the decisions that I'm making about, doing something different and going after something different. Yeah, hell yeah, it's a little scary. But like I said, I'm more scared of just taking the job or taking the path of least resistance. You have to be uncomfortable to become your best. You have to come out of your comfort zone to become the best you. And that's what I've decided to do. That's what this show is about. That's what a lot of things that I've decided or made a move toward is about. And I think that a lot of us have taken this last year to really, really reflect on what it is that's important to us, what it is we want to be remembered for, what it is we want our families to remember us for. It's not easy. It will not be easy. But nothing worth it is. Very cliche, but very true. So, hey, if you're watching this and you're somebody who's looking to learn more about, wait. Hey, start your story again. You missed it. Well, brother, you was there for half my story, my friend since childhood of 2 years old, something like that. You know my story. You can watch the rerun. This is on YouTube, and it will stay up on SafeBook on Facebook for the next 30 days. Much love to you too, man. Much love to you. But again, gotta do what you gotta do. Making a change late in life, it's not the easiest thing, but you can do it. Sometimes you got friends like this gentleman who try to put you onto that thought process a little earlier in life, and you weren't ready to hear it. And maybe some of you guys aren't ready to hear what I'm saying right now, but you will. You'll get to that second life and you realize you only have one. I hope that you guys have liked my background music, which has been produced and recorded by yours truly. My production name is Mr. Dez. But that's about it for me, peoples. I'm glad you stopped by. I am, really, really happy to have shared that part of my life with you. Again, if you're someone who's not sure about, insurance or finances, or you're looking to get that stuff together, or maybe, try to find a way to leave a little something for your family when you go along, shoot me an email, dencitytonight@gmail.com, dencitytonight@gmail.com, and let me know. Other than that, people, it's been amazing as always. I appreciate you. I love you. And remember to embrace your failures because they will prepare you for success. Peace out. See you next week.
Wake up, everybody. I just wanna start a new day. Remember what I say. Remember what I say. Remember what I remember. Remember what I say. Remember what I say. Remember what I remember. Remember what I say.